Okay, it is top of the hour, so we will start. Thank you all so much for joining me for today's live burst of innovation. Let me take my glasses off because it's getting hard to see. It is so good to have you all here on this Monday. Today we're going to talk about how to plan when the future is uncertain, which I think is accurate most of the time and hyper accurate right now. I've been hearing this a lot from the people in our community on the Everyday Innovators Tribe, the membership platform, as well as just people I connect with here and other clients, just talking about how, with things so uncertain, it's hard to figure out how to plan and how to lead others and feeling like they're getting momentum and moving forward. So what I want to talk about today, in fact, this whole week, this is a part 1 of 2 series, is how to plan when the future is uncertain. Specifically, I want to talk about innovation cycles because that's what really keeps momentum going and keeps you on track. And I'm going to share a slide with you of why that works. So what I want to do is I want to share a story. I want to share some examples, and I want to share a slide of why it works. And here's the thing about this slide. I think it's important for a couple of reasons. I think it really helps us understand how to leverage innovation cycles beyond kind of what we think of them right now. But it also helps us lead our teams and ourselves. And I would actually encourage you to take a screenshot of the slide when I'm done, so that when you go to your team to implement this, which I really, truly hope you do, that you have this kind of why behind it so that the team buys into it as well. All right, so let's talk about innovation cycles. I think we've all heard the, Agile, Scrum, kind of all those processes that work in 3-week, 4-week increments. They are fantastic. But oftentimes they are siloed to product launches, technology, putting out a new service. That's great, but we're really missing an opportunity to leverage that type of thinking and that type of process in everything that we do. So here's the deal. I'm just going to be fully transparent. This is what happened in the last couple months with me. So about 2-3 months ago, when all of this really started and the future started to become more and more uncertain, I sat down to plan. What are we going to do here at LaunchStreet? How are we going to make this work? And I created a 6-month plan. What that meant, really, when I thought about it, is I was going to work for 6 months towards this goal at the end of 6 months. And what I found myself realizing was that I just kept going off track. That 6 months, I didn't even know what was going to happen in 6 months. So the stuff that I was doing after a while started to feel irrelevant, but I hadn't baked in any milestones, any checkpoints for me to know, is this the right way to move forward? Is this the wrong way to move forward? How do I need to adjust? I just set this long-term plan and frankly wasted a lot of time on it. It didn't allow me to pivot because I was kind of focused on this end goal of the 6-month and my outcome of the 6-month. So realizing relatively quickly this wasn't working, I pulled from my toolbox, that makes more sense, and said, all right, Tamara, you know how to do this. Like, what are we going to do to actually drive innovation and plan in a way that works given the situation, the marketplace that we're in, which is uncertain and doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. In fact, I don't think it's going to. I think this is the new normal, the new abnormal, I think, Carolyn, did you say it, the now normal? I think there's a lot of different lingo for it, but you know what I mean. The change is constant and everything is just an uproar. So here's what I started to do. I started to do what I was calling innovation cycles. And what that meant is I would create a long-term goal. So at LaunchStreet, right, my long-term goal is to transition the business from these live events that we've been doing in the past to this online business model, specifically this membership platform that allowed us to bring together the tools, the community, and the support to help people really ignite innovation and to create those breakthrough outcomes and solve problems and really accelerate success. So that was the shift we needed to make. And that took a lot of hard thinking in itself. I've talked about that on other bursts of innovation. But that was the end goal, right? And that's a goal that's 2-3 years out. But I knew that if I focused on that, I'd never get there. It's too far out. It doesn't allow me to adapt with the changes that are real time, which is absolutely essential. And it doesn't allow me to pivot and navigate change. So what I then did was innovation cycles. So I set up 4-week cycles, 4 weeks. So I looked and I worked backwards. I said, okay, from where I am now to get to my goal in the long term, what do I need to do for the next 4 weeks? And I want you to notice something in my language. It's not just what do I need to achieve, not what are my goals, because frankly, those are arbitrary. And I think the mistake we often make in kind of trying to build momentum is we set these arbitrary future goals of like, I'll have X dollars, X members, X new revenue streams. What I found is that focusing on the actions is actually what gets you there. And then you can determine whether the outcomes you got make sense, whether they work for you or don't work for you. So I started to do that. Some really interesting things happened. So first of all, I got way more done. My team got way more done because we knew what had to happen in the next 4 weeks. We were very clear. And we kind of knew what was going to happen next, but we left it a little bit open because at the end of those 4 weeks, we assessed and we said, did we achieve what we needed to achieve? Did we get out of this what we needed to? Where do we need to pivot? Where do we need to change? So I hope that you're seeing how that 4-week cycle allowed us to keep moving towards the future that we were trying to build, but adapt and pivot to the things that were right in front of us. And that's the changing marketplace, what you learn about what worked and didn't work. So I want to share with you my screen because I think it's important to understand the why behind these innovation cycles. So we set up ours in 4 weeks. You can set yours up in 3 weeks, in 6 weeks. It's not about the specific time. It's about the process of constantly working towards these smaller actions, these smaller timeframes. There's a lot of benefit to that. I would encourage you not to go over 6 weeks because at that point, you really start doing long-term planning and that's not the point, right? I really like the 4-week mark because it allows people to really get stuff done, but that end in sight is there. It's right there in front of you. So let me share my screen with you. I want you to see why this is so important. And then I want to find out if you're going to do it. And gosh, do I hope you do, because it really does work. Okay, hopefully you can see my, you're seeing the wrong screen. Sorry. I just got a new screen, so now I got to figure out which screen is which. Here we go. Okay, hopefully, if you can't see my screen, will you please let me know in the chat bar? Just really important to me that you actually can see this. Okay, so here's why innovation cycles work so well. Number one, it allows you to pivot fast because in those 4 weeks, you discover what works and what doesn't work right away. So you're not waiting, you're not letting the mistakes and the not works pile up. You are in it and you realize it. You get to pivot fast. And as I said before, this is kind of the second layer to this. It also allows you to adapt quickly because in those 4 weeks, okay, thanks Brian for letting me know. In those 4 weeks, things can change. Your resources could change. The marketplace could change. I mean, we're seeing, just watching the news this morning, this is heartbreaking. We're seeing constant things happening in our world right now. So we need to be able to adjust as things change for us. So 4-week cycles allow you to figure that out quickly. And here's the beauty of that. And I know for all of you on here, this is probably obvious, but as you're sharing this with your teams too, the future is amazing. I 100% believe that you create the future you want to create, but the path to get there looks a little bit like this, a little circuitous, doesn't it? And we need to give ourselves the wiggle room to allow for those changes and those adjustments and flow, kind of like a river, right? It bends this way, it bends that way. We need to be able to bend in our work. That's what this allows us to do. Okay, the next one is, it allows us to play the long and the short game. You're building to the future, but you're planning concisely for next steps. My other experience, particularly right now, has been that people are less motivated by long-term plans because they're having a hard time seeing what the future looks like. That's okay. Let's build the future, but let's keep people focused by planning what's next, by really focusing on what's next. Okay, the third one is focused. I've kind of alluded to this. You keep people moving forward and not distracted. As I just said, people are having a hard time seeing past the next 4 weeks. let's give them 4 weeks to really focus on, and then the next 4 weeks, and then the next 4 weeks. You know, I've adopted this in my business across everything. After this last 3 months, I realized, why don't I just work like this? It makes way more sense. I've been doing it across everything. And I will tell you, our momentum, our progress, our focus as a team has risen through the roof in a way that it hadn't before. Okay, number 4, focused on track. It keeps you moving. Here's the other thing about this. When I talk about on track, I've already talked about focus. Small wins matter. They matter a lot, and especially right now. And when you focus on 4-week cycles, you're really focusing on small wins. And those wins, by the way, are simply checking things off the box, having something work. Those small wins really matter. They talk a lot about this in behavioral psychology. They matter in keeping us moving forward. So give people the 4 wins. It is so important. Let me go back. All right, 4-week cycles. What it allows you to do is to pivot and adapt, to play the short and the long game, to keep people focused and on track, which is so important. So take a picture of this slide, because I'm telling you, it absolutely works. Let me get off my thing. I think you've already taken the picture. If you haven't, let me know. I'll pull it back up. Innovation cycles is what allows us to plan when the future is uncertain. And here's the one last thing I'll say. I know I'm a little over time, but I want to just give you everything I possibly can in terms of value and what I know. Here's the other beauty of this. I mentioned in the very beginning, just to loop it back, that, yes, Emily, I'll put it up in a second. When we do this, we focus on the actions, not the outcomes. Here's the positive side effect of that, is that then your team doesn't get emotionally invested in those goals and, you know, does it work? Does it not work? You save that for the assessment time. And suddenly everything is just like, you look at it more like a scientist, like it's an experiment. Well, what worked? What didn't work, right? The ego, the having the need to hit certain numbers, that goes away. All right, let me get that slide up for you who asked. Emily, I think you asked. Let me get it back up. Sorry about that. I went too fast. Let me make sure I get the right one. I think that's it. I guess we'll find out. No, not the right one. Sorry guys, one day I'll figure this out. Desktop 2, that's what I want. Okay, there you go. There's the slide. I highly recommend taking a picture of this and using this to share with your teams and talking about cycles. Here's the other thing you can do. Cheryl just said, thank you, Tamara. This was very good, practical, and I needed this. I have a very hard time staying focused. Yeah, you're not alone, Cheryl. And you know what? I've talked about this in previous ones. We're all extremely distracted right now. There's a lot going on in our internal worlds, like immediately in our homes and in the world around us. So we need help staying on task and moving forward. And this really allows you to do that in a way that is super simple. I have sticky notes on my wall. I have sticky notes all over my wall with what I'm doing so that I move them from like what's in progress to what's in completion. For me, a physical act of moving it really just makes me feel extremely accomplished. But again, to me, it's not about the outcome. It's about the actions and then understanding those actions. This is how innovation works. I want to take it out of just product and technology and give you that tool as something that you can do 24/7 in how you manage your work and life and how you manage your teams. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. On Wednesday, I'm going to go more into how to plan when the future is uncertain, but we're actually going to talk about deeper questions and milestones, because those also help us get to the right place. Sarah said, love this, and we'll be using this. I got to pull up my glasses when I read comments. Sorry, guys. Love this. We'll be using this in my review with my supervisor. Oh, Sarah, that's fantastic. Good. I'm glad to hear it. You're welcome, Emily. I'm so glad this was so valuable this morning. We need some push on this to stay in the same lane, right? You're welcome, Cheryl. Okay. Stop sharing. You've all been great. Thank you. You're welcome.